Because I'm familiar enough with it, and I know there's a lot of information out there. Right, and so I try to direct that towards something here, something about like the that's really well. But also, they want to just so it's not, but there isn't necessarily somehow original. So I went beyond. So there's a lot of great studies. That's not comprehensive. The methodology.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Well, you know, I should.
Or yes, on that point. That kind of answer that. Well, I care what I'm talking I know. I go plenty. It's 10 o'clock somewhere. So we'll continue this. This is Tuesday, January 27th, 2026. We're at the Fort William Henry County Center, and this is the Lakeport Park Commission. Jump to number 2, approval of meeting minutes and fiscal actions report. The approval of meeting minutes for December 2025.
So moved.
So moved.
Second?
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
No nays? Pass. Abstention. Abstention, okay. Well, how did the tape pick up the abstention?
Yeah, but we got Kara here too.
All right. Approval of fiscal actions report, December 2025.
So moved. Second.
Motion made, motion second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That's carried. Project review actions report, Commissioner Stanek, don't be afraid to stretch this out a little bit, John. Don't you do that in blood pressure?
2026-01. Accept project review action report. Whereas the commission can receive and review project review action report prepared by staff dated January 20th, 2026. Whereas the project review committee recommends acceptance of the project review action report. Now therefore to resolve that the commission directs that the project review action report be incorporated in the minutes of the full commission meeting. So moved.
Second.
Motion's made, motion second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Hearing no nays. Number 4, presentation, Lake George Land Conservancy. Joe, you want to expound on that a little bit?
I'd love to, thanks. We have Mike Warren here today. He's the executive director of the Lake George Land Conservancy. We've been partnering with them the last year or so on hemlock intelligent activities. They've been doing some great work preserving land inside the park. I think the slogan is protecting the land, protect the water, or something close by. And we certainly know that, the state land and the easements are super important for protecting water quality in Georgia. So we invited Mike to come talk about all the great work that the Conservancy does.
Mike can do a tree inspection without the use of a ladder.
James, how late want
Look at him. Look at his 5'6", maybe, he's tall.
All right, well. Musical chairs, okay. My name is Michael Horn. I'm the executive director for the Lake George Land Conservancy. Thank you for the introduction, Joe. Thank you to the commissioners and to the Park Commission staff for inviting me here to speak and just give an update about the Lake George Land Conservancy, who we are, and work that we've been up to. Let's see. What's my best move here? I'll let this page down. I'll do this. All right, the Lake George Land Conservancy, our mission is to permanently protect the land that protects the lake. So here we go. All right. The Lake George Land Conservancy, we are an accredited not-for-profit land trust dedicated to working with willing landowners and other partners to protect natural lands that protect the world-renowned water quality of Lake George and the natural resources of the Lake George watershed. So there's a lot kind of baked in there. It's very deliberate. We're working throughout the Lake George watershed. It very closely aligns, but not perfectly aligned, with the park boundary. We cannot protect land without other folks working with us, whether that's, of course, that includes the current landowner, it includes donors and volunteers and all of that kind of stuff. Our success very much depends on the generosity and the passion of people who love Lake George and want to see it protected for future generations. And we take this work pretty serious, but we try to have a bit of fun while we're doing it. So, a few things about our conservation goals in order to deliver on that mission statement that I just touched on. We're looking to permanently protect really important natural lands. We're not looking to protect any piece of land. We're looking for land that really benefits water quality. That might include stream corridors. It certainly would include shoreline along the lake. It would include wetlands, which are critical to slowing down surface waters and helping to filter them before they reach Lake George. That would include forested lands as well as steep slopes, which are more susceptible to erosion should they be converted to a different use. And as you go through that in your head, you start to say, oh, that would be a whole lot of this watershed, right? We have a lot of steep slopes. We have an amazing amount of stream corridors, wetlands, of course, there's a lot of shoreline, not too much left to be protected, but we'll do what we can on that front. Beyond water quality, land provides a lot of other benefits to the community, and we think through that. The natural habitat for plants and animals. The scenic beauty of this place really relies on the natural lands around the lake. There are places that have historic relevance. We're interested in helping to protect that. And a lot of the land that we protect provides recreational resources for the community, and that's a really important part of the local economy, which revolves quite a bit around outdoor recreation. There are two ways that we protect land. We either own it and hold it for conservation purposes, or we would put a conservation easement on that property, which permanently restricts, say, development, subdivision, things like that, but might allow for certain uses by the current owner. And those get a bit more nuanced, but they're very effective as well. We work all around Lake George. We look to work with the communities and the agencies around the lake. And I guess I would say, this part over on the right-hand side of the slide that you're looking at, there's a lot of science that illustrates the importance of permanent land protection and how it can protect water quality. It really is the most cost-effective and the most efficient way of protecting water quality. I would note that Lake George is largely the beautiful, clean lake that it is, because more than 95% of the land around the lake is still natural land. The natural systems are intact. We hope to keep it that way by doing the work that we do. A little bit more about us. We were founded in 1988. Since then, we've protected over 14,000 acres of land. We've invested over $35 million in that land protection. I mentioned that we're a not-for-profit organization. We are governed by an independent board of directors. We have 20 directors currently, folks from all around Lake George. And I would note that we're an accredited land trust. What does that mean? We go through an accreditation process. There's an entity called the Land Trust Accreditation Commission. It essentially reviews and assures that we are meeting the highest standards for conservation permanence, and also that we have very sound governance as a not-for-profit organization. All right, this map on the right-hand side, I love it because it does two things at once. It shows you how much protected land we enjoy around the Lake George watershed. And I would note there's a lot of New York State land, sort of this dark green color, and you're familiar with a lot of these places, so you can ground yourselves in that. We have a lighter green color or slightly brighter, and those are places that the Lake George Land Conservancy protected at one point and then conveyed to New York State. That was more common, I would say, in our first 20 years in existence. We haven't done that now for over 15 years. Then you see the places that are orange and yellow, or I don't know, maybe those are salmon and pumpkin, or who knows. Those are places that we have protected, and the darker ones, the orange, I would say, are lands that we own, and then the lighter colors, sort of yellow, are conservation easement properties. And you can see the distribution, you can see how they connect already protected lands. You also can see the inverse. You can see how much land is not protected. And we know that those include vast forested areas, many streams going through those areas. And so I would posit there's a lot of work left for the LGLC to do. All right, what have we been up to? This past year was a huge year, one of our best years ever. We completed 7 projects to protect 1,963 acres of land. I'd say our marquee project this past year was the acquisition of Pilot Mountain. This is a 517-acre parcel that we purchased in July. Includes the 2,159 foot peak of Pilot Knob Mountain itself, more than 1.6 miles of streams that eventually flow into Catskill Bay. And it shares a 1.7 mile boundary with New York State owned Lake George Wild Forest. Just a tremendous property for water quality purposes, for the scenic beauty of Lake George. You see Pilot Knob Mountain throughout the entire southern end of Lake George. And one thing that was interesting about this project, a lot of folks gave feedback that they were surprised it wasn't already protected. They sort of felt that, gee, no one had built there, it must already be protected. In fact, the same family had owned it for nearly 60 years and they had not done that, but that did not mean it could not happen. And so we're just thrilled about that project. Up in the town of Bolton, we completed 3 different projects last year, 207 acres plus 192 acres plus 26 acres. Several of these expand on already protected areas. They really extend the amount of stream corridor, the interconnected habitat, which is so important for the plants and animals that I mentioned, and the scenic beauty of the area. A little bit easy to take for granted perhaps, but a lot of the lower ridge line that goes around Northwest Bay is included on the properties that we protected. You wouldn't think too much about it until you started seeing some houses built up there. Then you would say, what the heck? So we're pretty pleased with those. A few more projects. There was a 27-acre project up in the town of Hague. This is sort of a mile-long stretch of land. It's bordered on one side by lime timberlands, which also has an easement on it that allows for forestry. It also is adjacent to already protected land by LGPC. This protects a mile-long stretch of roadway that is sort of wild and developed, and it's part of the essence of that roadway up in northern Lake George. And importantly, and I love this aspect of it, the communities there came to us and said, this piece of land is for sale, would you guys consider protecting it? And we worked with you, and we said, absolutely. We went to work and made that happen. So wonderful community support by the local folks right there. We put a conservation easement on Camp Waupomene. This property is in Fort Ann, partly out of the watershed, a little bit of it dips into the watershed, just over the ridge. And just a tremendous large scale conservation easement that will keep nearly 1,000 acres of forest as forest, essential for the essence of this area, preserves it for outdoor educational purposes, and all these other aspects that we put out there. And then at the opposite end of the spectrum, size-wise, we have a little 1 acre piece that we acquired up in the town of Hague. We had a landowner come to us wanting to give us a bargain deal on this property. We wouldn't usually mess with 1 acre, but it's right there next to something we've already protected, and the stream goes through it, and it makes sense. So I love these different projects, and I really wanted to take a moment to illustrate them because they span scale, locations, sort of format of how we do our work. Hopefully you find that interesting. Something else we did in 2025 is take care of over 7,700 acres of land that we protected. This includes managing 58 properties, nearly 5,300 acres. It's one thing to permanently protect the land, to take ownership. It's another thing to manage it and take care of that. That takes a lot of work, a lot of focused effort. So what do we have to do? We want to really make sure that those conservation benefits that we sought to protect are delivered on a continual basis forever. So we go and check on these properties pretty often. We're looking for things like invasive species. We'll hear a bit more about hemlock-related delgid from Dr. Whitmore following my talk. But that's something that we've really been working hard on, and a great collaboration with the Park Commission and a lot of other partners, including the New York State Hemlock Initiative. I think you're going to hear more about that, right, Mark? All right. We look for trespassing, look for dumping. Maybe some folks take ATVs across and they're tearing it up and leading to erosion. We want to take care of these things as they're coming up. We also monitor the 21 conservation easements that we put in place, make sure that the conservation benefits protected by them are upheld and delivered. A lot of this work really is relationship management. whether it's the landowners on the properties that have a conservation easement, or maybe it's the neighbors that are on the property that we own, or maybe it's the local road crews and things like that. We really work hard to make sure that we're good neighbors, we're vested partners in the watershed because we're landowners, right? Public recreation, I mentioned before, an important thing that we also deliver for the community. We maintain over 40 miles of trails, and we do that every year. It takes a lot of work. We run a hunting program on a lot of our preserves. We open up in the winter for local folks to enjoy in that way. And this past year, we rebuilt the Lawrence Memorial Gazebo at the Schumann Preserve. Here you see a photo of ribbon cutting. That was a fun project, for sure. Proud of that one. We also engage a lot of people in our work. We, very simply put, could not do all of this work if we didn't have tremendous support from the community. With the projects that I mentioned and the stewardship, we had a tremendous year for fundraising, and folks just really coming out and supporting us. I think one of the neatest donations we got this year was a gift from the graduating class of Lake George High School. That was a surprise and just so cool. They loved that Pilot Mountain project, and they said that meant something to them, right? So that was a really nice thing. We run a lot of programs that engage folks. Hike-a-thon, Discovery Series is a partnership with Up Yonder Farm, where their naturalists get out onto our properties and lead guided hikes and educate people on what they're seeing and the importance of land protection for the watershed. Here you see some photos of people volunteering at the 80K 5K, which we're a charity that gets supported by that. The summer gala, we have different parties and trivia nights and things like that. Very simply, I mentioned it before, we should have fun in the work that we're doing, and this is part of how we do it. These are all summary pictures. We do stuff during the winter too. I would encourage you to check out our website. We have a great calendar on there. There are different opportunities and outings and whatnot. Looking ahead towards 2026, we have it's a good, I like that for 2026. Excuse yourself. We have contracts on 212 acres of land, so we're working on closing those projects. We have advanced discussions with landowners for more than 800 acres more that we're pretty optimistic about. And so we keep on moving on. We're engaging landowners in addition to that to provide information about conservation as an option for their land. One of the most important things that we think about, and this really plays into how we go about our work, we plan to be here forever, right? We protect land forever, we plan to be here forever. We can be patient, we take a long-term view on relationships and on transactions. And so some of these conversations and engaging with landowners, it might take a couple of decades before it comes to fruition. It's not uncommon. And so we work with that. Stewardship of our protected lands, I mentioned it, it's pretty dynamic. Takes a lot of work, but we're up for it. We have a very big year ahead for the Lake George Hemlock Coalition, which I already foreshadowed. You'll hear a bit more about. But there's a lot of momentum to address hemlock woolly in a very proactive manner throughout the watershed, thinking about it as a watershed issue, a water quality issue, challenge, rather than simply each landowner thinking independently. We are working on construction of a parking area at the Weowaka Uplands, which we protected several years ago in partnership with the Weowaka Center for Women, and we will construct a trailhead there as well. The McPhillips Preserve, we protected back in 2018-19 timeframe with the town of Lake George and the town of Queensbury. You're probably familiar, the town of Lake George is currently constructing mountain biking and hiking trails there. There will also be an outdoor classroom that will be connected through our Eastbrook Preserve over to Lake George Elementary. So that'll just be a wonderful town resource once that comes to fruition. We continue to be active in that project and all the fun education and outreach programs all year long. So, oh yeah, there's a link to the calendar if you want to check it out. And that's what we're up to. Thank you for your time. I appreciate the chance to simply come and tell you a bit about what we've done recently and what we're up to going forward. I'd be happy to take any questions. Or I can exit stage left. See you next time.
There's no motorized use of these vans, is there, like snowmobile, et cetera?
So just
Any
saying,
motorized use?
generally, no. So there are some places where, like county snowmobile trails and so forth do crossover lanes, we're open to that. But generally speaking, we, have more passive recreation, hiking, walking, nature observation, birding, things of that sort. But we are open to that in the right places. I feel like, the opportunity for impact to the land and to the natural benefits from motorized use is much higher, the likelihood of it is much higher, so we want to be very careful if and when we do allow that on a given property. Careful about where we locate it, careful about how that area is constructed and maintained. Snowmobiling in particular has a bit less impact because typically things are pretty frozen. Things like ATV use or off-roading, that becomes a much bigger problem, right?
On your calendar, says the hike to Dome Island is full. How full does full mean? And, you know, is there any chance?
Sells out every year.
It's full.
Okay.
It's got, I think 90 people signed up and about 90 people on a wait list, and we closed the wait list at this point because it's too much. But it's looking pretty cold out there, right? So we're optimistic.
Yeah.
We might need volunteers. Alright.
Oh,
Mike, the conservation easements are interesting to me in that, you know, people aren't selling land, but they're still, you know, preserving it and protecting it. I'm sure a lot of that just relies on altruism. What are those conversations like with landowners about, you know, the benefits of putting their land in conservation?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, right? How does a landowner come to us and how do they think about this? We do a lot of work to make sure our story is out there. So when we protect a piece of land, I mean, oftentimes we will do a press release, we'll try to get the story out, you know, if the landowners want to be recognized. We want other folks to see that this is happening and, oh, that could be an option for me. I'm also gonna say reputation and word of mouth is critical, right? So someone talking to their neighbor who conserved their 100 acres, you know, that can become really important. So it's a little bit, there's not a real linear path to getting a landowner to reach out to you and say, I'm interested in learning more. So we're trying a lot of different things there. So once they do, we're sitting down and having that conversation. The first thing we want to do is understand what's important to them. What do they want to protect? What do they want to not have on the land that they currently own? What would they like to still be able to do, if anything, on that land, right? So if someone has, and I'm gonna say, what are the current uses already? So if someone has, I'm gonna make something up, 100 acres, and they happen to have a home, and there's also a big stream corridor, they may want to protect that from further development, but still be able to enjoy the woods for their own personal recreation and keep their home there. That's not a candidate for selling to us, right? That's a great place to have conservation. Someone else may have 100 acres and there's nothing on it, and they don't want to be involved anymore. They're kind of moving on, or maybe it's even estate planning, and maybe the kids are off in a different part of the country and no one has an interest, so it's time to figure out what's next, and they like the idea that it's going to be kept in this way. So some of those kind of conversations come up. It's really, each conversation is bespoke. We need to understand what's important to that given landowner and then collaborate with them to get to the right solutions.
is there any taxable status? Because doesn't DEC still pay land taxes on certain properties?
Yeah.
Certain municipal, or maybe all municipalities.
So we're not shy about going for property tax exemption. It's a right that we have as a not-for-profit organization, and we're providing a public benefit with these properties. That is something that we do. I suppose I would posit that there's also a return on that. We are never going to require additional services from a given municipality. We're not going to require more road clearing. We're not going to require, you know, more kids in school. There's a lot of dynamics here. There's a lot of dynamics. We certainly feel that the work that we do to protect Lake George buoys property values. And so there's sort of an indirect benefit through other folks' property might be more valuable because the place stays great. That the expertise required to do a proper economic analysis goes way beyond anything I can provide, but those are a couple of cursory thoughts. It's a question that comes up on occasion. We feel that we're great community partners. We have a good relationship with the different municipalities, and generally speaking, they're glad to see us doing work in their neighborhood. Kathy?
I see that you work with the town and the state, et cetera. Has there ever been a program like yours or somebody that works with school systems that own all the, large, plots of land in terms of protecting or whatever?
I'm not familiar with that. I'll bet there are some legal nuances that I've never heard that. It's an interesting question because some of our schools own some really nice
Yeah,
parcels.
Lake George,
I know.
140 acres.
So, we've protected our East Brook Preserve, which is adjacent to that land in particular. We've actually worked with the Lake George Elementary School to go monitor their woods for hemlock woolly and Delgin and bring a team out there. So I would say we've run some education programs with some of the kids there, so we're more than happy to engage. I would say, I'm not too worried about that land. If the school system decided they might want to sell that land, I would hope they would call us first. But as long as the school system owns it and they're gonna manage it appropriately, we're happy to be a collaborator with them in that way. If they feel that they have a need or something to get out of that land, absolutely talk to us. I don't think it's a high risk, in other words, to be converted to, development, commercial use, what have you.
Excellent.
All right,
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate your time.
So we just temporary here?
Yes.
That's why I'm not moving.
We should have balcony seats. Actually, if I take on the agenda, Okay, Dr. Mark is here to talk about the words that I can never remember how to pronounce, and I have it right in front of me. And, you wanna expound on it, and make an introduction?
Well, thanks. We have Dr. Mark Whitmore from Cornell. He's the director of the New York State Hemlock Initiative, and he bravely drove here from, did you come from Ithaca yesterday? So he deserves a medal just for making it here today. But hemlock woolly Delgin is a relatively new topic for us here in the basin, but he's been working on it for years and years. The commission, through the Environmental Protection Fund, last year was able to provide some funding for technicians to do some survey work and some treatment. And we're looking to do the same again this year, and again in partnership, amazingly, with the East Shore Schroon Lake Association, which I always have to say extra slow. So those are folks, Schroon Lake is providing funding for treatment and survey in the Lake George Basin, just recognizing, that we're kind of the cutting edge of, the northern extent of hemlock woolly Delgin. It just kind of shows how important that is here regionally. So Mark's here to give us some education, and then if you're all agreeable, we'll look to fund some more HWA work in the basin. Without further ado, so
hello, everybody. It's really nice to be here. Nice to see everybody, many friends. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. The hardest part was getting away from my house yesterday. My wife was not very amenable to my movement. But anyway, can everybody hear me just fine? Yeah, okay, good. So I'm here. I'd like to help educate you about this threat to our trees around Lake George and how important it is. And just to preface this, I don't do this all by myself. There's a big list of people here that have worked in my lab over time, including one of my sons. I can't believe it. He's a linguist, but he's also an entomologist. But anyway, so I've been studying Delgins, this class of insects, for almost 50 years now. And I have more questions now than when I started. So let me just try and help you understand what's going on, the threat, and how we're approaching it in the Lake George and New York area, actually everywhere. So first of all, I'd just like you to sort of like think about hemlocks and how important they are. And I think one of the most important things in my profession is that the old adage, you don't know what you got till it's gone, really does hit home. Because you see these trees, this is a really old tree. You can tell an old hemlock from a young hemlock by the size of the branches. You look at the branches on there, they're just huge. This is an old tree, 500 years, I would guess. And to see them just sort of like disappear, just like that, is sort of like, it's shocking to me, always has been, and always will be. They occupy the base of the food web. We call them a foundation species. Basically, it's the foundation upon which a myriad of other creatures depend on for their sustenance, for their livelihood. Imagine a hemlock forest. You go into a hemlock forest, it's still, it's cool in the summer. In the winter, there's not as much snow. It's a very transformative type of habitat. Whereas you look at if you take the hemlocks out, the whole thing changes dramatically. Whereas if you have a hardwood forest, you lose one of the species like white ash we're losing now, you still have a hardwood forest. It's a game changer with hemlock. And one of the most interesting things, I was actually looking up the definition of a foundation species, and one of the authors of a paper discussing it said generally they're so common that we take them for granted. And I think I put hemlock right in there with that. So this is what happens when you don't do anything. This is down in North Carolina, Banner Elk, North Carolina. Yeah, it's sad. This is in the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. So this is happening here. You go to Paradise Bay, we have dead trees now. And it's like, I'm trying to put that off as long as possible. And I'll discuss more about the bright future that I'm envisioning. So this is it. It's really a really beautiful insect, right? I love bugs. I think this is really cool. You see little pores on the body there. That's where it makes the white woolly things that come out. It's just an amazing insect, so complex, and yet looks so simple. Just a little, beach ball with mouth parts that goes into a tree. So I'm not going to belabor this too much on this ecology geeky stuff. They're found in coniferous trees throughout the world, indulgence, and spruce are always the primary host. Hemlock happens to be the secondary host, and on the primary host, that's where they have sex. On the secondary host, they don't. It's all asexual reproduction. So in North America, there are no primary hosts that we've found for this insect. It's all the secondary hosts. It's all asexual reproduction. And therein lies the issue, is that all it takes is one individual to start a whole new population. It's just astounding the way bugs do things. So there's actually, and I just wanted to bring this up for your educational purposes, there's not one, but two invasive indulgence in New York State, and present in the Lake George watershed as well. There's the hemlock woolly indulgent, but there's also the balsam woolly indulgent, and it's on the balsam firs, and it's killing the balsam firs in this area. I want to say that because, it's like the hemlocks have caused all this rigmarole. Everybody's upset about hemlocks, but wait a minute, the balsam fir also. If you go up to Lake Placid right now, right here, where they have that ski jump facility thing, there's all sorts of dead balsam firs because of the balsam woolly indulgent. Nobody cares about that, but we're talking about hemlock woolly indulgent. I'm sorry. And it is more important, I think, around the watershed here, because you go look around the watershed, you go along the lakeshore, and it's the most common tree on the lakeshore. And to lose that kind of resource is, to me, is unconscionable without trying to do something. There it is. It's really photogenic, like I said. So if you go out there right now and you're looking at hemlocks, this is what you'll see. It's like white cottony things. It's actually a waxy wool that is produced by the pores on the body. And I've often pondered why they do that. And now I think I understand. You have a soft body like that, and in the wintertime, you're exposed to the drying climate. And if you have that waxy wool stuff all over your body, you sort of make a boundary layer, and it keeps you from drying out. I've answered one question for you. So this is the hemlocks around the world. They're in China, Nepal, Bhutan, and Japan, and Western North America. I grew up in Washington State, and I did not know anything about hemlock woolly adelgid because it doesn't do anything to the trees there. Now it's a really important part of my research, and I'm really glad that I know the countryside because I'm able to benefit from that knowledge. But on the east coast of North America, where we have eastern hemlock and Carolina hemlock, there's no adelgid. Why? There's adelgids everywhere else, but not eastern North America. And I have no answer for that. Why not? I guess the aliens forgot to disperse it. But anyway, so but they're all different populations, genetically unique, and it's a very interesting scientific thing. So this is the life cycle in eastern North America. So we'll start here with the crawlers in springtime, actually in June-ish. That's the only mobile stage of the insect. So it hatches from the egg, and it's this little tiny thing. That's about 1/4 of a millimeter in size, teeny tiny little thing. They move. They have legs, and it's really amazing. There was one researcher that did a study, and he washed the feet off of birds that were in a hemlock forest. He caught them in a mist net, and he washed the feet off, and he got the crawlers on them. So they're really adept at getting onto birds' feet, and I think that's responsible for long distance dispersal. And that's also why I think I see them popping up here on Lake George, all along the lake shore. It's like there'll be a spot here, and there'll be a spot further up, and another spot further up. Wind is also good, but imagine, what are the chances of this little tiny thing being blown by the wind and landing on the hemlock? It's pretty low, but I think it works. All it takes is one. But anyway, so in the summertime, this is what it looks like. This is a little tiny black dot. And that's a pretty dang smart thing to do if you're a bug, because when are there predators out there? Summertime. And so if you're looking unappetizing and small, and you're basically hibernating all during the summertime, you're probably avoiding a huge amount of predation. And then in the wintertime, they begin to grow, usually around the end of September, beginning of October. They start to grow, they fatten up, and so you should be saying to yourself, bug, cold-blooded, and growing in the wintertime. Give me a break. Why? It does. It grows in the wintertime. So think about it. The microhabitat on a hemlock branch where they're growing, in the wintertime, when it actually gets sun on it, it superheats really quickly. And so it makes it a good place to grow. And avoid predation in the wintertime. It's great. There, you've got that figured out. So it grows all during the wintertime. And then in springtime, usually about the end of March, the adults, they begin to lay eggs. The eggs hatch, turn into crawlers, disperse to the second generation, 2 generations in a year. Okay, that's important. And they settle down, and then they produce, and once again, go back to the summer generation. So they feed on the twigs, they don't feed on the needles. Which is an interesting thing, and it's really important to understand. You see that arrow there, that's the tissue that they feed on. They actually gum up the conduction of water and minerals to the developing buds. And so they kill the buds, they don't kill the needles. they kill the buds, and the buds are actually responsible for forming new needles. And so it takes a little time, but after a heavy infestation, like usually 4 years is like the minimum, the minimum amount of time seen for mortality in a tree. Basically, it stops new needle formation. It doesn't kill the existing needles, it kills the new needles that are being formed. And that's the problem, because you'll look at a tree and you say, oh, it's still green, what the heck? And it's, at the time, you're not seeing brand new needles being formed. And so if you really want to evaluate the health of your hemlock tree, you look in the springtime, in like late May and June, when it's just pushing out that brand new tissue, that, the lime green tissue, it's so beautiful. And if you see that tissue, you know that you're in good shape. You don't see any of those nice new shoots, you're in trouble. Oh, that's the beginning of those nice new shoots. So yeah, I've seen trees survive 10 years or more, 20 years. I have a friend that was walking with him in the Berkshire Mountains, and he said, yeah, this stand's been infested for 20 years, but it was on a really good site. Those were really healthy trees. They could sustain the continuing infestation off and on. And as I mentioned, those new shoots are really important for evaluating the efficacy of insecticide treatments. Insecticides are incredibly effective, and I'll talk more about that. So there's the spread. This is 2021. Really, it's that old one. Sorry, I don't have a more recent slide. So it has spread further than that. I do have more slides, but you see there it's up in Nova Scotia as well. I visited friends up in there and I've been helping them. It's really moving really rapidly in Nova Scotia because they get bumped. Nova Scotia gets bumped on the nose by the Gulf Stream, so it's nice and warm. And the adelgid is susceptible to cold temperatures. That's why I think we have a breathing chance here, because it gets cold and it kills a certain portion of the population. But in Nova Scotia, it's going crazy because it's so warm. Here in New York, these are the detections. It was first detected in the Hudson Valley, lower Hudson Valley, and it's been moving up and throughout the state. One of the most important methods that it gets around is by transferring a nursery stock. It's not a regulated pest, and so there's issues with nursery stock. So think about it. How are insect populations controlled? There are a number of factors. Abiotic factors, I've already alluded to it. They're sensitive to cold temperatures. That's a complicated issue, and I don't really have the time to get into it, but it's really fascinating. We do look at cold mortality every year when we're trying to evaluate places to release our predators. Biotic factors, biological control, insect, natural enemies, fungi, and viruses. We found predators. We think we might have found a fungi, but it's not very prominent. And viruses, we just haven't found any for this insect. And then genetic resistance of the host tree. So those are the three things that control insect populations. And it's a combination of them all. You mix them all up, and that's what keeps populations static and keeps them from killing trees. Like in the West Coast, with hemlocks on the West Coast. It's like they don't kill trees there. It's just really remarkable. We'll talk more about that. So current management in New York, the short term is where we found systemic insecticides. These are insecticides that are transported through the conductive tissue of the tree into the canopy, into the twigs where the insects are feeding, and it kills them there. We found some just absolutely very effective chemicals. And so that's the short term. What we have to do, I think, is keep our genetic resources, keep those beautiful, not only genetic, but scenic, those important places. We have to keep them alive, I think, and we have the capacity to do that. It's not a long-term solution, though. The long-term solution is the implementation of effective biological control, and that's what I love the most. That's what I got into business for. It just happened to be the right guy at the right place at the right time. And we can perhaps think about using silviculture. It's really interesting up at the Mike Federico with SUNY ESF. What is that? Pack Forest, thank you. At Pack Forest, they've just implemented silvicultural treatment, so that we're investigating the different thinning regimes and the response of trees and how that's going to impact population growth within Mongolia. That's a very cool project. I'm very anxious to see what's going to happen. So there are two chemicals that we use, dinotefuran and imidacloprid. Dinotefuran moves rapidly into the canopy, takes down the populations, it's very expensive. And it's only registered for hemlock woolly adelgid in New York State. They had a hard time getting it registered with DEC, but they realized the necessity of its use. And one of the reasons it was so difficult because it's very water soluble and moves rapidly into the canopy. And where are most of the insecticides used in New York State? Long Island. And Long Island gets their water from the groundwater, and that's why they're very reticent. And so we can only apply it as a basal bark spray. Imidacloprid, the second one, moves into the canopy slowly. It likes to adhere on carbohydrates, but it also lasts a long time, 5 years, maybe more. Dinotefuran effective for 1 or 2 years, imidacloprid for 5 to plus years. It provides the wonderful thing about dinotefuran, it provides a quick short-term reduction of hemlock woolly adelgid. And this is a really, really big issue with old trees. Old trees, they basically, just like me, it's like I move more slowly now. And they transport much more slowly into the canopy. And so you really need to have that takedown, a quick takedown of the population of hemlock woolly adelgid in order to have the trees, the older trees, respond to the longer term imidacloprid treatment. Yes, and if you have a big old tree with a heavy infestation, you got to use the dinotefuran. Otherwise, the tree gets overwhelmed, and if it's not a young, bruising tree, it's gonna really get hurt. Sorry, okay. So what we're doing, our preferred treatment technique is to use both dinotefuran and imidacloprid together. Now, one of the things I'd like to caution you on, these are neonicotinoids. Now, you've heard the controversy recently about neonicotinoid insecticides and the Birds and the Bees Act and everything. Well, there's actually a carve-out in the recent legislation that was passed, and the carve-out is for hemlock woolly adelgid. Hemlock is wind pollinated. Bees don't even go anywhere near it. I've been looking at hemlocks forever. I never see bees on them. It's just they don't use it, and it's not an issue with hemlocks. So yeah, tank mix. What we're doing is we're applying a tank mix both together. Okay, I've already been through that. There it is. This is spraying the tree. It's like, yeah, it's really rapid. One of the issues is you have to have the insecticide, you have to have the water to mix it up, but it works. It's very effective. We've done a lot. And I get a lot of questions about the movement in the soil. And in Great Smoky Mountain National Park, when they first got hemlock woolly adelgid in 2000, they started losing trees really rapidly. I mean, it was big trees. And actually, the forester for the national park, Jesse, I forgot his last name now, really great guy. He likes apple trees like I do. And he said, if I knew then what I know now, I would have just pulled out all the stops and treated as many trees as possible. But when they finally started, the Park Service is reticent to move ahead with this kind of stuff. And so they put money into treating the trees, but they hired Elizabeth Benton to do research for her PhD, and she did an amazing job. And she looked at all these areas that were being treated, and they were treating not with basal bark spray, but with a soil drench. They're putting the insecticide directly in the soil around the trees. And she found basically that it didn't move, it didn't get into the streams, And actually, the stream, the insects that stream, let me say these, the insects that live in streams were actually impacted not by the insecticide, but by the loss of the hemlock canopy. The loss of the hemlocks was much more important than any kind of insecticidal impact. My friend Bud has been trying to do silviculture. I like the idea of silviculture, but we can't cut trees in wild forests. So anyway, but anyway, biological control. Now this is where I think the long-term thing. I cannot get enough predators. So the interesting thing is in the Pacific Northwest, we've noticed that it's like the heck. They're indulgents and they don't kill the trees, what's going on? And so what we did is we put basically bags on branches before the predators got out. And once we got the bags on the branches, we just left them there for years. And we found that oftentimes regular population regulation happens. And so in these places where we put the branches, the indulgents were gone throughout the rest of the trees. The only place that there were indulgents was on these branches that had the bags on them. So like predators, yes. And so this is a paper, a young graduate student at Amherst. He finally got it together and said, okay, I'm going to actually quantify this. And he showed that indeed the predators are responsible for reducing the populations in Washington state. And these are the predators. There's a beetle, actually two beetles, one from Japan and one from the Pacific Northwest. And then we have two flies from the Pacific Northwest as well. Leucotraxis are the flies, Leucotraxis are Giannicollis and Peniperta, and Laricobius nigrinus. So the interesting thing is that when we first started, it's like low-hanging fruit is what you do, right? And beetles, anybody can work. You could work with beetles. I mean, they're really easy to work with. They're very, fluffy. You can do anything to beetles, and it's like they're just fine. And so first it started. They found my friend in my past friend, I should say, in Victoria, BC. He was in a hemlock forest and he found this beetle feeding on the adelgids, and he brought it to the attention of the people working out east, and boom, Laricobius nigrinus. We introduced it, and we were working with it since 2003, first introductions. But it was really interesting. My friend Joe from Amherst, he was trying to define the efficacy of this predator, and he came to a meeting, and everybody's all excited about this predator working, and he just looked at everybody and said, "It's not working. It doesn't work." It's like what happens is that the populations, they come back again. 2 generations, right? So what happens is that any predation effect, or for that matter, the effect of cold winters, killing the overwintering generation, it makes room for the second generation to be more successful. So if the daughters of the mothers will be more successful if there's more mortality of their mothers. That's why it doesn't work. Because it only feeds on that one generation. That's why we need the second generation, and that's why we need the flies. And so it's like, we knew the flies were there, but they're really hard to work with. But now we knew, then we knew exactly why we had to have the flies. And so we've been working with the flies since 2015, but really seriously since 2017. And they're just getting a hold on it. Here it is, the fall, we have the hemlock woolly adelgid, the Laricobius, the beetle, feeds only on that one generation. And then we have the flies for the second generation. So we finally figured that one out. That was a really good thing to figure out. So these are all the releases that we've been doing. I've actually been releasing since, this those, yeah, you can see this is the distribution of hemlock-related allergen. This is more accurate, 2025. And these are all our releases. I've been releasing since 2008. The fun thing is that we are having success with the beetles. They're spreading, they're established. These are all the places that are established. Now, it's one of the most difficult things with biological control is to figure out if you actually have a generation surviving and reproducing. You imagine, okay, you have this forest out there filled full of hemlock-related allergens, and you release some predators and say, bye, have fun storming the castle. And it's like, where do you look for them? And so it's like, it's just, that's our biggest conundrum, is trying to find them again. And so we've had good success. We found them, and we found them spreading. So yes, many generations, and indeed, I don't know if I'll actually come to it, but in the south, in the southern Hudson, in that state park down there, I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, where we released them 10 years ago, this last fall, we got colleagues from around the state, from state parks and whatever, and we went down there and we collected beetles, and we collected 12,000 beetles in just 3 days. And it was great, and everybody took the beetles home and released them, so they can think about where they're going. But anyway, we're really, I'm very happy about that. I think it is a success. It's important. Remember, it's additive. It's not complete, but it's additive. We have this one established, and it's working. These two young women worked on a project, these high school students and a Cornell undergrad, where they actually looked and sampled these stands where we've released in the past, and looked at a buffer, and they found that actually 3 districts were in the study, found that they had spread, over 30 kilometers from these release sites. So it's really good news. This one is working. And as I mentioned, so the flies, it's a different story. I'm frustrated with the flies, but we have good news. We've released in many places. We've released almost 100,000 since we started working with them. And flies are a lot more difficult to detect because when you have a beetle, you beat on a branch and the beetles drop down into your hands. That's good. It works. That's the natural defense response of the beetle, is to just take its legs and just drop to the ground. Works really well. But the flies, they just go up. So it's like trying to find flies. It's been a real pain. But we found some. Just this last fall, we found F4 generation, which means that they had gone through 4 years. And so the flies, now we know they are established. And we just got to work on, I think, our technique of detecting them so that we can get a better idea of how best to release them so that we get the greatest efficacy, the greatest population buildup and spread. We're trying things. So here's the conundrum that we're faced with. I hope I'm not boring you too much. So we say we have 1,000 bugs. So do you release all those 1,000 in one place, or do you release them in 10 places? It would be much better if we had them spread out all over the landscape, right? But we might not get population growth. And so when we first started, we were releasing maybe 500 at a time. But this last year and this year as well, I think we're releasing like thousands in one location. Just to see, it's like, we have that F4 generation there, and it's difficult to pick up elsewhere. Let's just bombard it and see what happens. So I could have a different story to tell you next year, if you'll have me back. Detection is really difficult. Manual, visual, and detection is slow, labor intensive. I can tell you all about all these undergrads we have working in our lab that are just off. They have to work so long with microscopes. So we're trying something using environmental DNA now, and it's an up and coming technique. Basically, what we do is we collect the DNA that falls through the canopy, and we're actually finding that snow is the best collector of DNA. It's nice and cold, and it stays there. And so you just before the snow melts, you just go out there and you just scoop up a bunch of snow, and you filter it, and you collect the DNA. And I have great hopes for that, especially when we have great snowstorms. And as a skier, makes me happy seeing snow. And so I have hope that will increase the time it takes to detect establishment and spread, so that we'll know what works, so we can actually refine the efficacy of our biological control. So in Lake George here, I'm very grateful for the funding source that's come through, and we're able to hire with funds from DEC, from ESLA, and from the Park Commission, technicians to do treatments. They've done an amazing job, not only treating trees, but also looking around areas. We call them blobs. We put together a map where we sort of like circled areas that we thought were important. We call them priority hemlock areas, PHAs, but we call them blobs. And so they've been looking at all the blobs, looking at as many as possible to be sure that we're not missing anything. And we've been doing a great job at treating as well. This is the area this is just below. Oh, by the way, thank you so much for preserving Pilot Knob. That is so huge. So this is at the base of Buck Mountain, where they went in and they treated, got in there and treated. They've found, we've detected it on Pilot Knob, so that's going to be a priority treatment area this next spring. And these are other areas where they've treated. They've been on the tongue, and then of course Paradise Bay and Shelly Rock, and also at the base of Black Mountain. This was a huge area this last year, as well as on the islands. They actually got way up to Agnes Island in the north, and they treated Long Island. There's the Long Island treatment. And they still have some more to do. In their treatment, they don't spray right next to the water. It just doesn't make sense. And so we're doing injections. And injections are much more time consuming, and they require equipment, and their equipment broke. And so they weren't able to get to the injections next to the shore. That's why you saw those red dots right there. But Long Island will be treated this spring. It'll be one of the first projects. Long-term goals, early detection is huge. We're thinking about, we're using eDNA for that, but also I think it's really important to get professionals out there. They can do it any time of year. Summertime, you know what you're looking for. You can find them when they're not even growing. There's the telltale signs. Defining the high priority hemlock stands, not only here in Lake George, but also statewide. State Parks has been doing a great job. We've been really, some of the iconic state parks would not have hemlocks in them right now if state parks hadn't gotten together and really figured it out. Increased biological control, efficacy and capacity, continued silviculture, and also perhaps to identify resistance. We have, in the West Coast, I'm sure we have resistance, but out here I've never seen it. And I'm a skeptic, I'm a paid skeptic. And it's like trees can escape through space and time, but resistance is something that's really difficult to identify. But the Forest Service has some great people working on it now. And there's an effort put together we're part of to try and identify resistant hemlock trees. So stay tuned on that. And here's some of the beauties in the state right now. Beaver Kill, that's the champion in the state right now, Beaver Kill. And there's up in the Adirondacks. There's my group, there's our website. I thank the generous agencies that have contributed to our effort. Do I have any questions? haven't worn you out.
The various beetles and flies, the chemical indulgence is their sole source of food?
Yes, yes, absolutely. That's why they pay me the big bucks to do this work. It's like, and it's really interesting, you know, it's such a, who will eat a bug in the wintertime? Well, the Lyricodius does. And so it's sort of like, it's a very specialized niche for these predators. And the interesting thing is, okay, so if you paid attention, if you're a gardener or whatever, you know that aphids in general have parasitoids, right? These wasps that lay their eggs in them. There are no parasitoids for intelligence. It's one of the fun things that we like to think about when we're at meetings and sitting down to a bar over a beer. Why don't intelligence have parasitoids? Sorry for dragging you in.
Mark,
Yes, Tony.
if you've shown that the beetle can survive winters out in the wild, but if there's not the fly to complement it, is at least an incomplete solution or perhaps no solution at all?
That's right. Yep, we need to have the flies. There's absolutely no question in my mind. It's like, okay, so, and one of the illustrations is, remember the polar vortex back in 13, 14, 15, where we got amazingly cold temperatures. And so at one of the study sites, we got 99% mortality. And I was thinking, oh my, study site, the site of the study is gone because we lost all the bugs. And next year they're just right back, just like that. It's crazy. You get all that mortality over that winter generation, and then that spring generation just pops right back. And so you definitely need the impact on both generations. And so, yeah, it has survived. I mean, the beetle is doing a great job. The interesting thing is we did a study, a graduate student in my lab during COVID, started this really great study where we sent bugs all up and down the coast, and even up until Lake Placid, we had the flies. And it was just a study to see if they would survive the winter. And it turned out that Lake Placid had the best survival of all everywhere, even down in Virginia, which is, sort of like, okay, so here's another one of my life's conundrums. Here you got, Puget Sound. It's really warm. It's so much warmer than it is here. And here are these predators, we're bringing them from Puget Sound and releasing them here, and they're doing just fine. So there goes out one of the rules of biological control, is where you got to match the climates.
When you say flies, these aren't the same flies that we chased for 3 days on our porch with a swatter.
No, if you kill any of those flies, you're in trouble. No, they're to the untrained eye, yes. It's like you don't know what the heck it is. It's just this tiny gray fly.
But I've heard it suggest more like a fruit fly than like a black fly or something like that. Is that like scale flies? They're tiny, right?
Scale, yeah, they're a little bit larger than the fruit fly. Thank you, Mike. That's a really good suggestion. Yes, ma'am.
Mark, in general, are you with a glimmer of optimism that we will eventually eradicate them?
Don't use the E word. Eradication is impossible with insects. It doesn't happen. What I hope, and my reason I'm here, the reason behind my whole thing here is that, I grew up on the West Coast where it doesn't hurt the trees. And we found that it's predation that's responsible for minimizing population growth, and I think for saving the trees. And so my hope is that the presence of the predators here will moderate the populations so that they won't kill the trees.
And won't migrate any farther north?
It will. It will. It
It
will.
won't create a bigger problem than just
No,
some.
but with the predators, it's not gonna, hopefully population growth will not be as rapid, and the trees won't be impacted. And we're already, I think, I just close up this mic here. I really do think that, even though my friend says that the beetles don't have an impact, I really do think they do. We've seen them where the populations of beetles are strong. The trees aren't dying as quickly. How about that?
Good impact is what you.
Yeah, good impact. So anecdotally, I think they are having an impact, but I really want the flies. So we're really focusing on the flies right now, getting them established.
Is there any way we can, I may have missed this, to preserve that new growth that eventually may come?
So
And then we can save the tree?
okay, so when the tree puts on the new growth, that makes new needles, and that's what saves them, okay? And what the hemlock woolly delta does is it clogs up the conductive tissue and keeps that new growth from happening. So if you see that new growth, you know that you're good. That whatever you're doing is right. You don't see that new growth, you're in trouble.
How long can a tree go without new growth? 1 year or?
They retain their needles for 3 years. So, yeah, you don't put on needles for 3 years, you're screwed.
If we have, let's say we see an infected tree on our own private property, what do you think is the best remedy for that?
Insecticides.
It's not close to the water, it's, on the lake, but what should we do with that one?
There's no question, you gotta find somebody to apply insecticides to the tree.
Not cut it down.
No.
I'm just saying, okay.
So we would contact your office, for example?
Go to our website, New York State Hemlock Initiative, and what we have is a list of applicators. We've actually sent letters out to applicators around the state and say, listen, if you want us to if you want us to put your name on our website as somebody who treats trees for hemlock woolly delta, just let us know. And so we have those people, we have a list of those. As well, the Adirondack Prism has a list of applicators as well. So there are people around that are trained and are willing to do it. And I recommend it very highly. You find a diligence on your hemlock, treat it right now, because it's gonna take a while for the predators to really become effective enough to save your trees, especially the big trees. Right now, the big trees are the ones that really concern me.
Did you have something, Joe?
Yeah, just looking ahead, Mark, so it seems like we're kind of trying to triage with the insecticide while the predators get established and balanced. Can you kind of talk about the predator releases that have occurred to date or will occur in the future? Is there kind of a routine plan of release in certain areas, throughout the region?
Yeah, we've released flies and beetles here. Paradise Bay, Showing Rock, Moreau State Park as well. It's not in the drainage. But, that's right, Clark Hollow Bay as well. So we've released. I wish we had the wherewithal to go around and check to see if they're, definitely established. We're trying. So this is, I think, the northernmost, coldest area where we released. Oh no, we just released up in Lake Champlain where we got the new infestations this last summer. And so this is really to us an interesting very different place to release, and we're interested in population buildup where it's cold. And so we're putting effort into it. We're sort of like forgetting the lower Hudson Valley now. We know what's going on there. And so this is something that's very interesting to us.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Question. Where do you get most of your funding for all this research and work?
I gotta say, I'm very grateful to the state of New York for providing about 95% of the funding for our project. The governor's office has been very generous for the past few years, and it's really made it possible. I'm grateful that I don't have a lot of federal funding.
That's a risk.
Yeah, that was a huge issue with Cornell.
So thank you very much. Kathy, Ben on our staff,
I know.
helped treat December, about, I think it was like 30, 35 trees up there last fall. And we're gonna treat some more.
That was actually very short.
Yes, I know that, Joe, I appreciate that, and,
Thank
Now I know why I became a bartender, not a PhD. Okay. That leads us to item number 6 on our agenda, which is resolution 2026-02, Hemlock Woolly Adelgid Survey and Treatment Approval of Project Funding. Do you have any more word for that, Joe?
Yeah, so just thank you again to Dr. Whitmore for the education and keeping the Latin to a minimum, which is appreciated. Again, this is, proposals up to $50,000, $10,000 is being provided by the East Shore Swimming Association. 40 would come out of the EPF funds that are allocated. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, otherwise, I'll leave it to you.
Joe, do you have the resolution?
Resolution 2026, resolution to support the New York State Hemlock Initiative field staff and surveying and treatment of hemlock, woolly, in the Lake Shore basin. Whereas the Lake Shore Park Commission is an important regional partner and leader in the invasive species prevention and management efforts. And whereas the hemlock woolly algae is relatively recent invasive forest insect to the Lake George Park that has the potential to decimate a large percentage of the forest cover in our watershed and over the coming decades. And whereas there is a consortium of organizations and agencies currently working together to advance the invasive HWA management in the Lake George Park. Whereas field work to survey for and to treat HWA has been ongoing. The staffing has been limited due to the funding challenges. Whereas the New York State Hemlock Initiative, working through the Lake George Hemlock Coalition, has put forth a proposal to the commission, whereas trained field staff can be increased significantly for a reasonable cost. Whereas the commission seeks to be an active partner in battling this invasive forest pest through the coordination of management actions at a critical time in this invasive presence in the Lake George Park. And whereas the East Shore School Lake Association also wishes to assist in the funding effort by putting in $10,000 towards the project with donations to the Lake George Park Commission for this cause. Okay, now we therefore be resolved that the commission accepts the proposal from the New York State Hemlock Coalition to fund the cost of the seasonal benefit technicians in 2026 for a cost not to exceed $50,000 with $40,000 from the Commission for Environmental Protection Fund allocation and $10,000 from the East Shore School Lake Association. And further resolve that the commission staff are hereby authorized to expend up to combined $50,000 in support of the 2026 HWA survey and treatment efforts in the Lake George Park throughout New York State Hemlock Initiative program. So,
Second.
Motion made, motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no nays, we have a adopt. Item 7, resolution 2026-03, acceptance of bid Eurasian water milfoil physical management. Joe, do we have any comments about that?
I will provide a brief overview and then turn it over to Justin. There's a lot more financial details, but in short, as you know, we have a management company that hires milfoil every year. Our contract for Eurasian water milfoil is up. And so as of this point, we have no one set up to manage for us next year through value assisted suction harvesting. So we went out to bid and got some results. I'll turn it over to Justin for more detailed explanation.
Yeah, so the previous contract expired, the end of 2025, and, recognizing that the contracting process takes a while, we started, in October of 2025 to, put together a request for proposals from, firms in the region that do that sort of work. And, we went through that process and we got a total of 2 proposals. One from New England Aquatic Services out of Connecticut, and another from New Orleans Marine out of Vermont. And staff reviewed the proposals, and both were excellent proposals. I think both firms are highly qualified to do the work. It basically came down to the fact that the weekly cost for the work was less for New Orleans, so they scored slightly higher than New England. And so we would seek to move forward with getting a contract in place for the season with New Orleans.
Do you have a resolution, Joe?
Resolution 2026-03, resolution to accept the proposal from the Regional Milfoil Management, whereas the Lake Shore Park Commission is the primary agency responsible for the initiative for invasive species management and prevention of lake on Lake George. And whereas the commission issued a request for a proposal on November 25th, 2025, for the purposes of identifying contractors to undertake Eurasian milfoil control efforts at Lake George for the 2026 to 2023 seasons. Whereas response to the RFP were due December 17, 2025, resulted in a total of 2 proposals received. And whereas the commission staff reviewed and scored each of the proposals in accordance with protocols established within the RFP. And whereas the commission staff has determined that the cost and control methods proposed by Mineral Water Marine of Wallingford, Vermont received the highest overall scores based on the experience and cost. And whereas the commission staff has determined that the cost and control of the control methods proposed by New Water Marine are consistent and supportive of previous milfoil control efforts found to be successful in reducing, controlling milfoil population in Lake George. Now therefore be resolved that the commission hereby accepts the proposal submitted by New Water Marine and authorizes staff to prepare and execute a contract with the expenditures not to exceed $1.5 million over the 5-year term of the contract agreement, pending available funding from the New York State and other sources as appropriate. So moved.
Second.
Motion's made, motion seconded. As far as discussion, I have a question, Joe. If any other organizations step forward to volunteer to assist in this expense?
So we have an annual working relationship with the Lake George Association, which we sincerely appreciate, and they put forth over $100,000 each and every year toward this partnership with us. So, for instance, last year, I think the numbers were roughly $220,000 out of the Environmental Protection Fund from the commission. I think LGA came in somewhere around $120,000. So we do have another partner in this. They would not be involved. They would contract separately with the generally same contractor. So this would be above and beyond what they provided. It would be available, and that LGA's funds supplement this.
Okay, so they're outside our deal. Correct. Okay. Any other comments? All in favor? Hearing no nays? Motion carried. Thank you. Ms. Catherine, you got law enforcement?
Yes, sir. The law enforcement committee met this morning at 9:30, and Lieutenant John's gave us a report. As far as equipment goes, our boat number 108 is in the shop. Our new needs an engine, motor replacement is underway, new radar unit being installed, and it was nice that we were able to use the nice grant we got from the NAP state to help with the GPS, so that's pretty cool. And as far as the Marine Patrol is concerned, the New York State Parks reimbursement package has been submitted, and we expect to get the maximum amount refunded, which is good. And we had a little issue, a little discussion topic with the docks at Green Island. The posts that have to be driven way down into the lake bed, we've hit a little snag with some rocks, but we've addressed that. We're going to be able to solve it, taken care of. And then we went into executive session, and then after we adjourned the meeting. I would like to make a motion to, well, I have to read the resolution first. Okay? Okay, so resolution 2026-04, meeting number 551 today, January 27th, 2026, acceptance of law enforcement report. Whereas the law enforcement committee met today to review matters pertaining to the Lake George Park Commission's Marine Patrol and the Commission's law enforcement program. And whereas active law enforcement cases and their status were reviewed in executive session, and whereas the Law Enforcement Committee has reported on the results of that committee meeting at this full commission meeting, and whereas the Law Enforcement Committee recommends acceptance of this month's law enforcement report. Now therefore be it resolved, that the commission accepts the report. I make a motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
Any discussion? Everybody okay? Thank you. All in favor? All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
I'm gonna get you a t-shirt that says that.
Hey, dress down for these meetings?
Item number 9, resolution 2026-05, Green Island Dock Construction Contract Amendment. Do we have any comments to make about that?
We do, so it's gonna be foreshadowed a little bit. We, as you know, accepted a bid, low bid for construction of 2 pilot driven docks last year. They are under construction, and the contractor ran into some issues where some large boulders at the lake bed have precluded actually driving piles. And so they're looking to amend the contract to allow them to pin the piles to the boulders, hardware, and so they're looking to seek to amend the contract. The contract can be amended, but only with your approval. The estimated increase in cost is roughly $9,500. As an efficiency, we're also seeking to add another $10,000 contingency, just in case we run into another hiccup such as this, and also looking to extend the term of the contract 2 months, just because all this takes time. In total, the low bid was roughly $289. Even adding this potential $20,000 for the hardware dive time contingency, it's still about $50,000. Let's see, what's the next one? Let's put $359.
Yeah, 357.
Yeah, so we're still roughly $50,000 less than the next lowest bid. So still in the low bid category, but these things happen with construction projects, I guess. So the resolution is to allow us to move forward with this contract amendment and get the pile secured.
These docks will be available for the 2026 season?
Yes.
And they're working in the winter, aren't they?
Yes.
Who is our contractor?
So it's AP Real. It was Jamie Real. I don't recall. I think the meeting was at Silver Bay originally, when that little bit was awarded.
We had the dock doctors do a similar thing at the Conway, and the docks are absolutely fine. They couldn't go through, they couldn't drive the piles, so they pinned them. It's quite a process, but they do, but there's no difference to us. The docks are all
We're gonna have you as director of the job out there.
I stood on the sun deck and watched.
Do we have rules, resolution training?
I have one right here. You want me to read it?
No, really.
Okay. Resolution 2026-05, resolution to amend the Green Island dock construction contract, whereas after a formal competitive bidding process on April 22, 2025, the Commission approved resolution 2025-23 to accept the low bid from AP Real LLC for construction of 2 new pile-driven docks and 1 dock roof at the New York State Green Island Marine Facility in Bolton, Maine. And whereas on May 19, 2025, the Commission entered into contract C 2025-0200 with the AP Real LLC for the low bid of $289,950. And whereas AP Real LLC has encountered environmental constraints that preclude the driving of piles for a subset of the dock supports, and therefore must amend their construction methods to pin the subject piles to rock on the lake bottom. And whereas AP Real LLC has identified that the alternative means of securing the docks, which includes underwater work, will increase the contractor's cost of materials and labor at a value of $9,507.92. And whereas the commission finds that the alternative method for securing the dock piles meets the intent of the original contract, and whereas the commission finds it advantageous to extend the contract term to May 31, 2026, and to afford an additional $10,000 in contingency funds to cover any future unexpected construction conditions. Now therefore be it resolved that the commission hereby accepts the proposed amendments and authorizes staff to prepare and execute any contract amendments necessary to, number one, cover the proposed $9,507.92 increase in dock construction costs, and two, to extend the deadline of the contract to May 31, 2026, and three, to expend up to $10,000 in additional contingency costs associated with the construction project and is subject to review and approval by the Office of the State Controller. I so move.
Motion's made, motion second, any discussion, any questions? All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no nays, carried. Thanks, Jack. Public comments. Anybody here would like to volunteer for that? There we go.
Good morning, I'm Tom Capa, I'm the Environmental Conservation Police Officer with the DEC. I've been a conservation officer since 2000. Prior to that, I was a park ranger out on the islands and in Hearthstone for a little bit. And for some of you that might remember, back in 2007, 8, and 9, I was the Director of Law Enforcement for the Lake George Park Commission. So the reason I'm here today is a very relatively simple ask. One of our fallen officers' widows, Sherry Raymond, wanted me to come here, and because I'm also the division historian, and part of my job as the division historian is to be an advocate for our fallen officers, I agreed with Sherry and I agreed to come here. Sherry is trying to get the bridge overpass that's up near Warrensburg. She wants to get that memorialized for her husband, Steve Raymond, as the Steve Raymond Memorial Bridge. And she is currently working with the town of Lake George to do that. I don't think they've really had this kind of situation come up for them before. I know this has come up around the state and other places where it's been done for troopers and sheriffs. But so the town is just trying to, feel their way through the process. And Sherry would like as much support as she can. Steve was, he was a resident of Athol, but he was a Warren County conservation officer. And for most of Steve's career, Steve came on in 1981 and he retired in 2007 for the majority of his whole 25-year career, 25 plus. He pretty much worked in Lake George and a few other towns. That was just kind of his concentration. So just so you kind of get a feel for it. The way we work now, there's 3 conservation officers in Warren County, and they kind of float around. But back when Steve first came on, the way you kind of came on the job was you were given certain townships, and those were yours for your responsibility. And you kind of divvied up the pie that way in the county. And for many, many years, that's the way we operated. Shortly after I came on, that changed a little bit, but we all still kind of informally decided those things, and we still do amongst each other to this day, where we say, okay, well, you take these towns, and I'll take these because I live closer than you, and so for Steve's, my point is, for Steve's entire career, he was very concentrated on the town of Lake George and the lake itself. When I came on in 2000, Steve was actually my FTO for a while, and we spent all our time in Lake George. I don't think we even went anywhere else. So, and I only say that because I know that the question will come up with the town, and it may come up with you folks here today, is why would we want to throw in for that? And, you know, the obvious reason is Steve did a lot for the town of Lake George and for the lake itself. And I think it's a very worthy thing that Sherry's doing. I think it's a very deserving thing. As an advocate for all our fallen officers, I've never seen it done before, so I would love to see this come to fruition for us. Steve was, he went to 9/11 and he served down there. And when Steve retired, he found out shortly after that he had cancer. And so he passed away shortly after that, as did several of our other officers. And so he's a nationally recognized fallen officer, and whose life was cut short because he just wanted to serve. And in addition to that, Steve was also a Vietnam veteran. So I think he's very deserving of this. I think it would be a great thing. And Sherry and I would like to ask for your support, whether it's a letter to the town board, or just an informal phone calls to the folks you know on the board, just saying, hey, this seems like a great thing to us and we would love to see that happen. And that's my.
This is similar to what the state police often do with the bridges in the Northway. They're following state police officers.
Correct.
And normally would we handle this like in a resolution?
I don't think so. Or a letter directing
Yeah.
Joe to send a letter.
What's the time frame on it?
I don't know that there's a particular time frame. I know I'm going to go with Sherry to the next town board meeting, and that's February 9th, where I think I'm probably going to have to answer a lot of questions there. So it would be nice to have something by then.
Would any of you have any suggestions or questions? I mean, we could just pass a motion today acknowledging the request and offering our, I'm assuming we all support it. It's an unfair way of doing it.
And have the Joe create a letter supporting it.
That we can forward on and, and they can use it as a base for their. I don't think we're.
I'll just make sure all this is as a state agency supporting us.
Okay, yeah, let's,
And you're our most senior member here.
whoa.
Is that the resolution?
Why is there giggling going on?
I'm not familiar with this man.
60-year-old man is not unusual.
I'm not familiar with the gentleman we're talking about. Do we have anybody on the commission that can speak to a history of a relationship that makes sure that we're.
I don't know the subject he's talking about, I do know the subject.
Do we need to do more due diligence? That's the only thing I'm concerned about, and I hate to say that, because it sounds like this guy is well deserving of all of this, but.
Well, let's
I
take
have
one
no
hurdle at a
knowledge.
time. Let's make an inquiry with Albany, just to make sure that we're not gonna get a phone call 30 days from now that they've discovered us. Yes, we used to be anonymous up here, and accidentally we got discovered. And you wish you press release without passing us. Sorry.
Can we pass a resolution with some kind of a caveat like that?
I don't think we need a resolution for that. I mean,
Just investigate it.
yeah, let's investigate it.
Because you don't need a resolution right now.
You can leave here with generally moral support, whatever that is worth, and thinking that this is a good project, at least for myself personally, I know everybody else. And we'll produce you something nice, as long as Albany doesn't complain. and Joe knows how to handle that. So.
And we sent it to the Warrensburg Town Board.
Lake George.
Lake George, excuse me.
Not like the bridge,
But the bridge is in it.
but the bridge is a state bridge, does the state have to approve it?
So from what I understand, that it has to start with the town as a proposal from them, and then it will go to the Warren County Board of Supervisors for approval. And then Sherry is ready with her state representatives to produce bills to be put into the legislature. And that's how we're, and Sherry's been through this process before with other things.
So our direction would be to Lake George Town Board.
Correct.
With positive affirmation.
Yeah, I was surprised, I thought that bridge was in Warrensburg too, and then I had to look at a map, and it's.
Oh, no, that's
Lake
George.
They're down there in Lake George.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, are we all satisfied with that?
Thank you for your service and for this.
Yeah, thanks for your,
Thanks for hearing me out.
Yes, thank you.
back in the old days. Good, thank you.
Your second best director of law
Right,
enforcement.
now. Our time frame may not turn around by February 9th.
He just has to, it's my understanding on this, you're just gonna speak to the town board on February 9th.
He was hoping to have something from us before that.
It doesn't necessarily matter if it gets there before me or after me.
Right.
At least shortly after me would be best, if not before,
You
but
can certainly mention that you have.
I know they're gonna have a lot of questions,
Board support.
and then I don't know how fast they're gonna move after that or not move.
I think we just need to be careful because we are a state agency. And
Point
it just
taken,
goes through-
individually, he can, we're all supportive individually, I think. So
Individually, as
he can
commission,
take that to the board and, you know, officially the commission may react after that.
we need to make sure it's the state.
Absolutely, I get it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
I appreciate the effort. There you go. Anybody else? Hearing nothing. Motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn, has been made, seconded, any discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no nays, we are adjourned until the next time. Thank you very much for your service.
Yeah. Hey, what?